Thank you for this opportunity to continue our tradition of Sunday at Sunrise. I'm JB Bryan, President and Chief Investment Officer of JB Bryan Financial Group, the home of AfroEconomics, where the fifth principle of AfroEconomics is including God into every aspect of our lives, especially our finances. G and Yame, the Adinkra symbol that we use to symbolize that. Make sure you take advantage of visiting the website, afroeconomics.com. Go down the page and you'll see all of the principles there. We're celebrating God this Sunday morning and every day. I'm so thankful for this opportunity to just share some time with you. I want us to exchange. I want us to talk about why we think voting is important. You know, what's it all for? I mean, I started off, we were listening to Fannie Lou Hamer, a woman who really sacrificed her life for voting rights. I mean, she was beat almost to death, beat. They pulled her off a bus because she went to register to vote in Mississippi. They pulled her off and she set up her own like Democratic party because the Mississippi Democrats wouldn't let black people in to the convention. She set up her own group like that. Well, her everyone around her. You know, there's so many people who we don't know their names, but she had to almost lose her life, and I know, I mean, her life was cut short due to injuries that she dealt with forever, having been arrested and then beaten in jail almost to death. She spoke to Congress about what happened in her pursuit for voting rights. Like she saw that our right to vote, she felt was our right to freedom, that it was going to lead to economic equality. She was so broke. Her family was so broke. They worked on a plantation. She worked on a plantation her whole life until they kicked her off. They kicked her out. Her and her husband kicked them out of the plantation where they were working for pennies because they registered to vote. Think about this, y'all. But does that make, I mean, I've seen so many times where we put, oh, it's important for us to vote because of so many people that sacrificed their life, for us to be able to vote. Is that, why you vote? Or is that why we need to galvanize to figure out what we need to do to get the needs of this planet met? When you I have injustices for our community, that's injustice to everyone. When you take away our freedom, you're taking away freedom from everyone. The more you put someone in bondage, the more you're keeping yourself in bondage. We have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to do an attachment to our vote, not just vote. Because if our voting was that important, if our voting was that important, don't you think that it would be a resistance more than what we see? And then we worry about it on a national level when locally, that's where the huge issues are, especially with voting rights. It was local government that almost beat Fannie Lou Hamer to death. It is local governments that are deciding to close down polling areas that are actually like over 1,000 polling areas, which were predominantly in Black areas, have been closed down. So this is a activation on a local level that we have a responsibility to. Why did you close that down at the elementary school right there in my neighborhood? Why is that not still available. I was watching on the news the other day, and they were doing busing to the polls. Why should you have to be bused to the polls? Why did you close down the location? So there's other things that are going on. But I wonder, if we realize that we're asleep, that we're asleep. God has left us here to watch out for ourselves and our people, and the people who are are in pain, the people who are unemployed right now because of this pandemic, to watch out for your Black people who are disadvantaged and do not have the opportunities because of what they're born into. And they're more likely to be in areas where now, in the middle of this pandemic, they don't have access to everything that they need in order to get the education that they deserve. But are we asleep? Because what are we connecting to that vote? See, when Fannie Lou sacrificed her life for the voting rights, she knew that 70% of her area was Black, and all of the leaders in her area were white. She knew that if we fight for this, we will get representation. And then I won't have to have another generation who's working for pennies on a plantation with no benefits, no future. That I will be able to create a judicial system, especially even a local system that will arrest people for coming and killing our 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 cows, killing all of our livestock that my parents sacrificed. This is a story that she tells, that they came because they had saved up their money and bought livestock, that she pointed out that the white community came and killed their livestock. So now they have no horse to help them farm their land. They have no mule. They have no cow. They have no chickens. They're killed off, and there's no law enforcement to stop it. Very similar to what we're going through now, when you have a woman in her bed, sleep, and she's shot to death, and no one gets arrested for it. And it's all law enforcement that come into her house, and no one is held accountable. A man is someone, shoots him in the back as he runs away from the scene. I don't care how bad your record is. You're no threat to me when you're running away from me. And why can you assume that because it's a Black man that he's running away from you, that you're assuming that he has a criminal record, and you're going to use that against them? So you think that that gives you the right to kill them? Because too many of us are asleep at the wheel. Now, see, the word was left here for us to empower us, not for us to just wake up on Sunday morning and, get in the church and sing the gospel music and clap along and dance with Kirk Franklin and feel that that's all you're supposed to do. But no, in the book of Mark, chapter 13, it says, don't get caught sleeping. Basically, it said it's like a man going away. He leaves his house and puts his servants in charge, each of their assigned tasks, and tells one at the door to keep watch. So therefore, keep watch, because you do not know when the owner of the house will come back. So whether in the evening or at midnight or when the rooster crows or at dawn, if the owner comes back, do not let him find you sleeping. Is God finding you sleeping? Because it's God in charge. It's God who is in charge of your life. When you hear that word, who are you thinking about? Who are you thinking owns you? You know, God has left us here to make sure that the world becomes a better place. God has left us here, and we have to wake up. Mm. And in the last verse, it says, what I say to you, I say to everyone, watch, keep watch, wake up. Back in the day, you had all these like voting drives and all this stuff and they were held at Black churches. We were galvanized because, we had a connection between, our equality and our relationship with God. That it was like a basic part of the word, because we know that in Genesis, in the first chapter, it says that we are all created in the image of God. So, with that confidence of knowing that we are the beginning of civilization, that we have to still believe that just as much as we ever did, that we have a responsibility to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable, standing up straight, being included, creating the world that God left here for us to build. I know that every day I'm dealing with this wealth gap, and I know that it started through taking of the land, not giving the reparations, discrimination in wages. I know that at this day, our people are more likely to be on minimum wage. I know that I live in a country that has decided that it's going to allow minimum wage. And I know that we continue to vote for people who allow minimum wage, realizing that nobody can live off that. We continue to vote for multimillionaires who don't know the pain of trying to build a business when you have no inheritance, paying for school when you have no inheritance. But we have to make sure that we know that we have a requirement to sacrifice. And maybe Fannie Lou, it was easy for Miss Hamer to sacrifice because she had nothing to lose. Is that what it is? So those of us who have something to lose, we think that we don't have to. Let JB Bryan go out there and say that Black people are more likely to be on, minimum wage, but I'm not going to do that, because I'm not going to sacrifice, you know, my standing. I'm going to, because I love my material items, and I might not make as much money in my life, but it doesn't matter. I'm not, because when we focus on our short-term materialism, like Fannie Lou Hamer could have done, she could have said, well, I got this job at the plantation. And if I go out there and I try to make it better for the next generation, because I know that 70%, the majority of this whole Mississippi is Black people, and that one of us is representing or involved, and they just come and steal our land, rape, steal anything. And because we're not involved in law enforcement at all, I'm just going to go ahead and settle for this. Like Harriet Tubman said, she would have freed more people if they knew that they were enslaved. But how many of us are enslaved right now because you're not willing to sacrifice anything? You're not willing to take the time to talk to someone about the importance of staying focused and getting the skills and the education that they need in order to take their life to the next level. Instead, you'll just look at them and say, them young people, they don't know no better. They just, that's that generation. No, they're like that. No, we have a responsibility, in my opinion, to give our whole self to the glory of God. And God wants everybody to have a relationship with Him. And our ancestors have sacrificed and used the churches to work hard for the freedoms for freedoms of everyone. And most importantly, to stop the oppression of their own people and everyone that's coming after them. If we don't stop the oppression will not stop. We have to feel that we are instructed through the word of God to stay woke, that God left us these responsibilities, and we have to stay and make sure, stay on watch and make sure that our people move forward. That we have to make sacrifices to create the positive change that is required. That our sacrifices create opportunities for future generations. When I see the young people, logging into Afroeconomics, you know what I'm saying, and that and I see a lot of people who are young who don't think that they're young. Like if you're 60 and 70 and of sound mind, you are young in God. I mean, according to God's will, you are young and he still has you here to do work, to make it better for everyone that comes after you. And that's by you being the excellent person that he brought you here to be. We have to stop the death and the losses and the judicial system that thinks it's okay to over criminalize our people. We have to make sure that we create the change that we want in this world. Don't just allow, oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's so sad. No, we have to do more than that. What do you need to do on your level in order to make it better for the generation that comes after you? I challenge that we need to attach to our vote the importance of having livable wages and how that is going to be vital to closing the wealth gap. That they can write all these research papers and to prove that Black people are on their way to zero wealth within the next 40 years. But no, what we need to do is make a conscious effort on what are we going to do to stop that. And we need to move away from a federal minimum wage that's not livable. If you work 40 hours at a minimum wage and you still are in poverty, that's a problem. And we should not live in such a world. That is Mississippi plantation. We need to have government sponsored small business loans to enhance the ability for our communities to have small businesses, startup businesses, not how long you've been in, no, startup businesses, so that we can have our people who want to have their own business have a chance, because they don't have the equity, they don't have the generational wealth, we don't have the family that has the 100,000 or 200,000. Amazon started from a $250,000 loan from a step parent and his mother, his stepfather and his mother, 250,000 in a space to work. And he's one of the rich, if not the richest man on the planet. So when you don't have that, my parents didn't give me $250 when I started my business, but that's okay. They gave me the inheritance of a commitment to education. They gave me inheritance of a commitment to ethical integrity. They gave me a relationship with God from day one. They gave me all that they could. They gave me all that they could. And that's what's happening in our community. And that's why the wealth gap is so big, because when we give all that we can, it's not helping the next generation. Too often we're dying without even enough to pay for a funeral. People are doing GoFundMe's in our community to pay for the funeral. So they weren't able to leave an inheritance. But the word says that we should leave an inheritance to our children's children. That means that God's intention was for our money to be long. So also, I'm attaching to my vote, and I'm encouraging all of us in Afroeconomics to attach out to our vote the desire and the requirement for more affordable housing in this country. Also, affordable health care. It needs to just be a basic that in this country, we need to have where everyone can have health care and they can afford it. We need to have public colleges and technical training that has minimum to no tuition expenses, that everyone can get advanced education past their high school. We need to have protection for our social security, which most of our community is impacted more by there not being the social security protection. You know, I mean, there without hesitation, I'm opening up the microphones for you all. Without hesitation, the government has admitted that the Social Security trust, that what if you're working still, you're putting money into it, and they're saying that it's going to run out in the 1930s unless something is changed. Well, what's going to change? I'm and I'm adding to my list of what I want, and I'm gonna figure out how we're going to make this. I'm doing everything I can to make the voice of Afroeconomics thunderous. I want it to live way beyond me. I want us to have an impact politically, no matter who, what party, separate from that. Because we're going to have to function regardless of who gets in that White House. People are so emotionally connected to political parties that if their party doesn't win, this is research that I have looked at, that if their party doesn't win, they make a person whose party doesn't win is more likely to make a unguided financial decision because they're that mad about their party not winning. Let's attach ourselves to God, not to a political party. Let's attach ourselves to what we need to come out of this government, locally, regionally, statewide, and nationally. We see now, even with this Supreme Court issue, that the president can do all that they want. That person is not going to get in there unless Congress, what is that? A local issue, unless Congress approves that person. So the media can say, oh, the president this, oh, the president that, blah, 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 blah. We have responsibility on the local level. We can impact who gets in there. And if we haven't been doing enough on the local level, then of course you're going to feel like, oh, well, the person at the top really makes that much difference, and you're going to have more emotion and you're going to be mad, and but nothing good can be done when I'm emotionally. The word says he conquers he whom he first angers. And it hurts to see so many people with a relationship with God who are angry at a little person. I don't care how high they sit, they're still just a little person. They do the same things you do: wake up, drink water, urinate, do number two, everything. They're the same person. The title is totally insignificant. They have to answer to God just like you. We have some sort of like confusion where we actually think that somehow that person, because of their title here on earth, is going to have some sort of high position with God as well. Seriously? If it's the one you like or don't like, it's in God's hands. Someone the other day was talking about how there's no way this person, there's no way he could have been sick because he wouldn't have got better that fast, and this and this and that. And I said, well, you know what, let's just accept it as possible with God. I would rather think that God can do all things than to think that something is impossible, because the word has told me that everything is possible. In Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20 through 21, it says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power, this is God, is at work within us. To him be the glory in the church and in Jesus Christ through all generations, forever and ever. Amen. That is God. We have to move away from disempowering ourselves. What if Fannie Lou Hamer, what if she had said, look, I'm just a cotton picking, literally cotton picking. She said by the time she was like 13, she could pick 200 pounds of cotton in a day. She started like as a baby, they were making her do 30 pounds. So maybe out of that she realized that if I can do that, God can use me for more. And maybe when they were trying to beat her to death, that she's focused on God. Because sometimes there'll be times in your life when you're doing right. And I see it all the time. I see it all the time. I've been through it all the time. You know what I mean? But I have been forced to keep my eyes on God. Because there is no way that you're going to create the effective change that God requires of us by having our eyes on anything else. Because material things will go, jobs will leave, people will leave you, other things will disappoint you. You have to stay focused on God. They put that woman into a jail cell, took two black men in there, gave them sticks, and made them beat her until they were exhausted. She said then the white security guards took over and beat her some more, tore her kidney up, messed her eye up, and she still went before Congress. I know people who won't even come on video because they have a bonnet on their head. We are so capable of so much more. What in life are you using to hold you back from saying what you want to say, doing what you want to do? And that's why, especially on our members meetings, that I like us to come in on video. I like us to speak. That's why I open up the microphone, because there's too much that needs to be said in our community, and we're not saying it. Mm. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 14, it says, if anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet. So we've been through stuff and they didn't respect what you were trying to do. They said, well, you know what? You're too black, or you're too this, or it's so sad. And then you stayed in that space. A member asked me yesterday, she said, JV, when did you learn to separate yourself? Because I told her, I have explicitly heard instruction to stop settling and begging people to want to create change in their lives. I have specifically received instruction from God, only help people who want your help. Stop putting your energy in trying to convince someone who doesn't want to change their life to change their life. What if Fanny had just gone around and told everybody who was happy picking cotton, that we're going to vote, we're going to vote. And they would have looked at her like, girl, pick the cotton. Master, look, and they weren't even slaves no more, but they still felt like a slave. They going to come over here and beat our butt if we don't get to 200 by the end of this day. And then she's out there. I'm going. I'm going to go and vote. Came back home and he said, get off the land. Get off this land, because we don't need you here anymore. You're an uppity Negro. She sacrificed. How much will you sacrifice? How much will you sacrifice? I trust in God that much. I remember when I first started AfroEconomics, and I remember so many people telling me, don't do it. It's too black. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Just be generic. Don't focus on black people. But black people need the help. Black people told me that. And randomly, there'd be some white people, but they would say, well, you're a lot of white people would love to work with you, work with you. And then I said, okay, you know, that's cool, but it's still Afroeconomics, and we have some white people that are involved, but they're about it. They understand it. They don't come into what God has put you there to do, questioning you. Because even I will have more of my own who would come in, and question. And I want people to know sincerely who I am, that I am, he said, get on top of the roof and say it who you are. Because Jesus was only picking a specific group that God had put him here to pull in those who believe. Those who believe, because there's still people worshiping idols to this day. But he said, I want, hey, follow me if you want a direct relationship with God. You know what I mean? This is my suggestion. So I believe that everybody deserves their own personal relationship with God and their own personal purpose in life. That whole argument of Black Lives Matter. So if you say Black Lives Matter, then that means someone else's life matter. No, it doesn't. That means if I say I love God, that doesn't mean that I don't love you. You know, I see God in you. I see, my Black life impacts everyone's life. My Black excellence makes the world a better place for everyone. Everybody benefits from Black excellence. Everybody benefits from a commitment to equality. Everybody. You take my freedom, you take your own. Did you know that when Abraham Lincoln, y'all, y'all better open up those microphones. I'm just talking today. If you got something to share, Miss Davis, tell me. How you doing, Miss Richardson? Did you know, and this is a question I want to know, did you all know that when Abraham Lincoln said that slaves would be able to vote, do you know what the asterisk was with it? Did you know what was the condition? They said, slaves will be free and they'll be able to vote if, and what was it? Yeah, Miss Hernandez is your, oh, your, and what was it? Sometimes like I had allowed to speak and then you're gone, like, and then it doesn't. So tell me, anybody?
I
Y'all,
have no.
I
huh?
have no idea. I have no idea.
No, what the asterisk was, right? I'm telling you, I had no idea either. And that's why I saw an argument with James Baldwin and this white guy. They were in Europe and they were doing a debate about the Black vote and Black people's ability to vote. And um, the white man's argument was that Black people aren't intelligent enough to vote. And then James Baldwin, of course, his argument was that everyone should have the right to vote. Well, Abraham Lincoln gave that white man that argument because Abraham Lincoln said only intelligent slaves should be allowed to vote. So that's where that whole literacy test came in. Y'all
That's
remember that?
and that's a bunch of garbage
Isn't that
because
something? And
because I
and
mean seriously
Fannie Lou and her people, I think that it shows that she took that test 4 times,
hmm
but they didn't take, I mean, this woman never went to school after age 15. If it was up to 15, even younger, like she didn't get, and she was so eloquent. But think about these people who weren't allowed to read, who had to work all day as little kids through everyone else, and I don't even, know that the white community didn't have to take the literacy test. But it said that slaves, so I guess it went into descendants of slaves, had had to prove that they were intelligent.
and you still have white people who couldn't read.
Yes. And you still had the white people who were illiterate. They didn't say that wasn't a criteria for them. You just had to be born white and
Mm.
you could vote. But that is a blatant, we have no idea where it started from, and that's where it started from. And that could be also the root of why when they say, well, black people, if black person got to do something, they got to do twice as hard and they got to, do 4 or 5 times, they got to be 4 or 5 times better if they got to so and so. It started, it started a whole long time ago. If you want to have a basic right of the white man, then you gonna have to, you know what I mean, go through a whole bunch more to prove it. And that's what we have to make sure that we understand, the history of where did this start? And at the same time, where did the lack of interest go? Where, okay, when they stopped having that as a criteria, how did we all of a sudden lose interest in making sure that all of our descendants are very intelligent? And that doesn't mean like going to school for a long, long time, because most black people were educated at home. Where do you think she learned to read? Where do you think she studied for that test? Where do you think, that was at home?
Yep.
That was in the churches,
Mhm.
which have our own, literacy programs. We have like dance programs and things. I was saying about where now they're going into the black community and they teaching black kids how to code. Have you seen that? And they say they have these little coding camps and they get government money. So basically that's teaching black kids how, and I mean I'm not putting it down at all, but you're putting them on the cotton picking level immediately at the beginning. Because why aren't you teaching them calculus? Why aren't you teaching them robotics? Why aren't you teaching them trigonometry? Why can't they be the engineer? Why do they have to be the coder? Why can't they write the code? Do you see what I'm saying? Too often we're settling and we're not understanding the big picture of what is happening coming into our community now from every aspect on a nutritional level, even in the food deserts where the research shows that even when they bring in a major grocery store to our community, we're still choosing to eat the unhealthy food. I was watching a documentary last night about Tribe Conquest, and one of the rappers was born, well, type 1 diabetic. And he said, I'm addicted to sugar. Nobody had a crack problem. Nobody had a drinking problem. Who's like, I'm addicted to sugar. It's true. And they started this addiction and dependency way back as a way to control the slaves. And now we're taking that same addictive, you know, and we're buying up the processed food instead of cooking the collard greens,
Mhm.
cooking the sweet potatoes, cooking the chicken, cooking the, growing something. When you have the opportunity, seeing the opportunity of, wow, you have this land in the country, turn it into a garden for your whole community, your whole family. Instead, we sit there with the land empty, not occupied, thinking about what we're going to do. You got to build on it. What about eating on it? What about farming it?
Amen. I have my garden in the back doing this COVID thing. That's what we just started doing. So I just planted some collard greens, got some more last night, and I got sweet potatoes that we just harvested a while ago. And I thought to myself, well, if nothing else, I won't be hungry. I can get a tossed
Amen.
salad out of my backyard. I got lettuce and tomatoes and some
Amen.
cucumbers. I
Amen.
can eat out of my backyard.
Amen. But that's very important. How many times do we have it right there? How many resources do we have right there? How many times do we walk right past our kids sitting there with the television on and don't talk to them about reading? Like last night, I was, I was telling Michael, I was like, I have to read more because that I'm working on my PhD. merely because I want to pick up better habits. I want to write more. I want to read more. But who encourages us to do things that are challenging for us? Instead, we get older and we just want to accept that you're so great, you're the best, you don't need to learn anything, you don't have any, but no, we should be encouraged because you know what? There's no point until the day I take my last breath, there's still something else for me to learn about. But we don't take that time to just sit there and read and see the appreciation in it. I find myself too often just skimming through, just skimming. But it is a muscle, and the kids aren't going to get it. It's like a workout, and the kids won't get it unless we get it. If they were not going to pray unless they see us pray. They're not going to call on God unless they see us call on God. If they see you get to the end of a week and you go, ooh, hard week, and you sit down and drink, that's going to come their God too, right? But that's what people do. Woo, I gotta go, and do something toxic. Gotta pour something horrible, eat something horrible because you had a hard day. If you had a hard day, that's when we need to get that control from God, right? And readjust. Because we've been instructed in Matthew chapter 6. Just in Matthew chapter 6, it says, when we pray, say, our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. May your kingdom come, right? Y'all pray with me. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day. Forgive us our debts, as we also forgive others, our debtors. And what? What's the next one?
Not into temptation.
And lead us not into
Temptation.
temptation. And what else?
Deliver us from evil.
How powerful, how powerful, how powerful,
Ooh.
how powerful. Deliver us from evil. How many people sit in evil because they think it's okay? Well, I got to accept this. I got to deal with this. You know? Mm, mm. You don't have to accept any of that. You don't have to accept that. Shake the dust off your feet. Keep on moving. Help those who want to be helped. Put an attachment to your vote and stay focused on goodness. I think that the reason that God doesn't want us to stay bad at our haters, you know, is because he knows that when you're doing his will, it's going to benefit even those who hate you. So if we get so obsessed with hating them, you're not going to do everything you need to do because it's going to be, huge. It's going to help everybody. You get me? You see what I'm saying? So if you're focused on, like, I can't, if I do that, then they're going to do better also. So I'm not going to do that. You can't. You have to say, I I don't, I know that they were wrong, but I'm shaking that off. I'm moving forward and they're going to be okay. I know that Miss Hammer did not die obsessed with the people who tried to beat her to death. She instead said, I know that I'm going to make this world better and they're going to benefit from my work. And they beat me, but they didn't kill me. And God is the protector and owner, and the motivation of my entire life. And I know that when we are told, I know that that's what it is. Because sometimes I go like, why? Why can't? No, he said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Move forward. I got something much better for you. You're going to ascend. That everything, if we focus on God, the things that we can do for this planet will be so amazing, but we have to focus on Him. That will be so amazing that it will take your own breath away. Do you believe me? you will be able to, and remember that in Ephesians, that he is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. Mm, mm, mm. In Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 22, it says, do not be afraid of them. The Lord your God himself will fight for you. Attach your requirements to your ballot. Before we go, does anybody have something that they feel that it will really help our community, really help your family, really help the planet, that needs to be addressed, that you see them skipping over when it comes to the political process? Or when you watch the debate, is there one thing you feel like they should have talked about, but they didn't address this? Is I don't feel that you can legislate out um, you know, that people being good to us.
Hmm. Why wasn't reparations talked about? I wonder why. I mean, 'cause I was kind of expecting that. I mean, they brought up the
Mm,
issue
mm.
about Black families having to have the talk. All right, so why not about reparations? That's what I was kind
Yeah.
of curious about.
Oh, and that was something real. And and it did come up like in the political process, especially in like the Democratic thing when they were talking, when all of those candidates and they were asking them about reparations and stuff. But the um the Democrats, I don't, that's a very good point. And I mean, I support reparations, but I support reparations for descendants of slaves. So for Black descendants of slaves. So that would mean, that a lot of people that recognize themselves as Black today would not receive. Like I know this white friend of mine was telling me about a white friend of her. Oh no, it's not her friend, but a white lady she knows that's from South Africa, and she has children, and she puts on the form African American for her white children. And I said, well, somebody needs to tell her that there's not like some sort of special program for African Americans. Like I think she thinks, what I mean, that we're actually like getting, some sort of benefit. Now I can't have now having raised a Black child, I don't see one benefit that my daughter got from being Black. And people who think that like there's some sort of affirmative action or Black kids get into college easier than white kids, I don't see it. Do you all?
Nope.
I don't see it. And I see it. I just think it's just, a marketing move, and that they talk about it, and everything. But Asian, if they are doing minority, like Asian kids satisfy that. So, and Asian kids aren't descendants of slaves. And, many of them come to this country from families that have money and have opportunities, and they are much their wealth is much higher than the average Black family or the average Asian family that will move here. And then so we're and they've been here not as descendants of slaves. So they and we have our movement, like we have sacrificed a lot for being the leaders of the movement that has helped women, people it helped people with all different types of people, sexuality issues, racial issues, everything. The Black movement for and fight for equality has helped everyone. And because of that, we become the face of it. So when we're seen, way too often it's seen as you're the troublemakers. We're going to choose this minority over you because it's just checking off a box. And I saw big differences during the Clinton administration when they decided that a white female in business, as long as she owes like 51% of the business, could get a government contract as a minority. So that they could check off that box. So that changed a lot of Black opportunities in government contracting when they expanded it. Now, so there's I don't, I think that we should really say like Black people are really, when we're getting to where we're getting to now, there's no such a certain program that's set aside, to help Black people. And now it's such a marketing move. But when you look at our wealth and you look at our incomes and you look at, and a Black woman is more likely than any other demographic to grow old and be poor. We have to make a conscious effort to be very careful on what we do with our resources as we move through our life, because we are raising our children by ourselves. Many Black families are led by the Black woman who eventually has spent all of her assets on her family and has to grow old and has nothing. So we have to be conscious of the minimum wage is hitting the Black woman harder than anybody else. We have to have the minimum wage increase to a livable wage across this country, or we will continue to have that poverty problem. A Black woman is more likely to have a job that has no benefits, that has no paid time off, has not, none of those, you know, opportunities that many other demographic groups enjoy. So we have that. I mean, you're talking about a college educated Black woman makes less on average than a white person coming out of high school.
And that's sad.
They did a survey in Baltimore, and you had college educated Black women, and only 24% of them, after completing 4 years of college, were living above minimum wage. Only 20%.
Something that kind of came up yesterday, with a talk with a friend, the people in like more rural areas as well. They really get ripped off as far as pay is concerned.
Yes.
They pay really
Yes.
low, and also having access to less services.
Yes.
So
So
that's
true.
a serious issue.
So true.
And people kind of tend to overlook that
Woo.
because the focus is on the urban areas, right, in the cities.
Yep. Yep.
But I mean, it really hit home because this person's a very dear friend of mine,
Mm.
and when she kind of explained her situation to me, it broke my heart.
The
Uh,
housing too. It's
yeah,
very hard for them to find housing and
yes,
affordable housing,
yeah.
in rural areas. That's a very good point. Very good point. So that is something that you should add, that people should add to their list of what they want. Exactly. Yes, indeed, Miss Howard. And Black women have the most education of them. And I think that we need to focus on building one another up. We need to focus on increasing our confidence. We need to focus on not staying in positions. And I'm going to continue. Afroeconomics is committed to you being all that you can be. I'm gonna push you and push you and push you. And people leave because I push so hard. But as I heard this man say the other day, he said, I would rather you hate me and see improvement than to like me and not change. And I really truly believe that. I'd rather you like JB Barn gets on my last nerve, but I so and so and so and such. And you ain't gotta be with me and I ain't gotta see it you know? But like our sister last week, she didn't log in today. But I still know the sister that was talking about, co-signing on the debt and everything. I know I know the end. I know the end of those situations. And I would just want I think that if I know statistically how most co-signing ends, and I know that in the word we've been instructed to avoid that, then I know that I can help you. And if I have to lose you for a minute, I know that you'll be back. I mean, I've been in this service for almost 30 years now. So I know I've seen people come full circle that, oh, I should have listened. 20 years later, you can't get that 20 years back. So trust me, I'm following God. Trust me. You know what I'm saying? That I have nothing to gain by suggesting to you something that's going to build your muscle. Like, I mean, but that you get better, that your family be helped. I want us to grow. But I'm gonna tell you, no matter how much good that you're doing, no matter how much you're building the world up, some people will always see you as a troublemaker because they feel that, contentment and comfort, is the key. But that contentment, think about that, the analogy about the frogs in the pot, you know? You put the frog in a pot of boiling water, the frog hops out, it's in pain. But you put the frog in some warm, comfortable water and you just keep heating up the water. And in a while, you got a dead frog, a dead frog. Don't seek comfort, seek growth. Seek growth. Long term growth will eventually build, build something that will take care of you for generations and generations. You plant a seed. Imagine the type of pain, if you could physically measure the pain that a seed has to go through, and it gets covered with dirt, and then it has to go through all of that effort, and waiting for the grace of God for the water to fall on the soil to get some juice, and then it just bursts eventually. Most of that, most of everything that you see when you just see the tree, most of that effort was done in the dark. Most of that effort, most of our work, most of our hard work will never be acknowledged. And that's why you'll see reference, in the Bible will say, don't even pray for trying to impress other people. So just pray in the darkness.
Sis
Mm,
JB, what do you think of
yes.
what do you think of the families who are starting to purchase large amounts of land, right, to build their own cities and stuff? What do you think of that?
I- It just depends on what they're going to do with it. Like I was saying, it could end up being a really great investment. They, grow things, or it could end up being a big waste of money. And raw land is on a scale of risky investments. It's on the top. Raw land is a very risky investment because you got to put time, effort in what you put on it, and it may never ever be of any value to you or anyone else. So you have to create that value in it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
some, so
that
it's
was another
all
chapter.
about that movement of what they're going to create. And, it's going to take a lot of sacrifice, and it's going to take a lot of vision. They may not see it in their lifetime. And the hard part is, well, what if the next generation is not interested in it? Or what if this is just a trend and they're just doing something for right now, and it's but they have to have an overall plan. And I'm gonna tell you one hard thing is, when you're talking about a group, a group, you ever watch those TV shows and they talk about the group, of people, and and then one becomes an individual star? But do you know how hard it is for a group over the long term to always agree or succeed? And what about so those are the challenge. Like when people start an investment club, and then there's the persons that wants to get out, before the group wants to disband. Then it's like, how do I get them their money back and things like that. So, and then, um, what is their relationship with God and your relationship with God, and how do they keep it together? But I think it could, like, any investment, it could go either way.
That kind of added to a talk that started several months ago. It's been a talk, but it's really been on the mainstream about buying black and focusing the black dollar into black businesses. So during COVID and trying to lock down on that and everything like that, it's really exposed so many things that we don't have, right? Say, for example, we know a lot
Mm,
of people, black people who fix cars, but how many black people manufacture the parts for these cars?
that's right.
Does that make
That's right.
so yeah, if
That's
they
why I
had
was
something like
saying, like, you know, I
that.
mean, just teaching us the, like the exactly what I was saying about the whole coding and the engineering aspect. Like, yeah, exactly what you said. How do we,
Yeah,
somebody, where's that engine coming from? Who put the
yeah,
engine together? It's so true. And you
yeah,
see more and more things. I bought this thing the other day and it said designed in USA, manufactured in China. It's like, so we'll never, what would they do for that particular product if our relationship, with China is disrupted? And how much more, how much, I wonder how much did they save or how did they increase their profit by having it manufactured somewhere else? But you're right. Like, and just understanding the whole manufacturing process is really important for our community to understand how business works, how the internet works, how the platforms, as like with last week where she was saying God had this car come up on the computer on her phone, and I was saying that's not God, that's an algorithm, but it is true. You know what I'm saying? It's an algorithm. The but we have to start understanding technology on that level. If not, they will continue to use us. Mm. It's so sad. Like I saw this Asian man, and he made Black History flashcards, and he would make the Black History flashcards and he was selling them to this black guy. So the Asian man did a video on YouTube with this white guy talking about how much money they make off those Black History flashcards, and they sell them to the black guy, and nobody knows that they're not even made by the black guy. And he was like, those black people, they will buy anything. I mean, it's right on YouTube.
yep.
I was
And
so disappointed with the black guy.
now,
I know he was embarrassed.
in the Alibaba website, I mean, I'm not taking away from that. It is a interesting tool, but I mean, you can buy just about anything in bulk on Alibaba and put your own name on it. And I'm like,
Wow, really?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's how it's on.
Cars,
Like you could say Black History gift card or whatever, and they would have it right there.
yeah, shoes, cars, phones, whatever. I
And
mean,
see, we have to understand those platforms. You know what I'm saying? Like, because a lot of times we don't understand. Like, like you were saying, I have no idea. Like you could that, but I see more and more people coming out with, like, say, their own this product, their own that product. And I'm like, did they really make that? Like, did they really go into the lab, and make that? So that's what it is. And that was a smart idea for the people in China that are making it. Alibaba, he ain't joking. And that man, like, watching his, interviews, we hear, like, he'll say he just, is just a hard worker, but that he would get fired all the time. He wasn't necessarily very smart. They wouldn't really, like, we can go to college. I don't think they allowed him to go to college because he couldn't pass the test to go to college. And then he just kept trying, and that's what I want us to see. I definitely want us to see that that is the history of Black people. We weren't initially, after Reconstruction, we weren't just government workers. Not to say that there's a problem with that. It's just that we weren't given those opportunities. We couldn't just go and walk into corporate America. So we had our own businesses. And if we still had those businesses from, right after Reconstruction and freedom of slaves and everything, that imagine having 4 or 5 generation deep of a business. Everything would be different for us. But there was a lot of illegal behavior. A lot of illegal behavior, people's houses being burned down, people's businesses being burned down, not being compensated, not being able to insure your business. So when the business gets burned down because you're a black business, you can't recover as far as the business structure. But how do we maximize where we are today and take our enterprises to the next level effectively, and just starting the investment? I think that the key for us is just to start something positive so that we have something to pass on. You want to see wealth. You see, like, we have a member who inherited a business from his father, and then when he sold the business, he got multiple millions of dollars. That's because he of his father's doing. Not that we want our next generation to sell off our business, but at least they have that opportunity to. And then what do we do with that? All right. Fortunately, I was able to meet him and, and continue to grow the money. And but what do we do with our inheritance when we do get an inheritance? We have to, realize, like, and then say we do put your whole life savings into raw land, and then the only thing that you can do next is borrow money. Well, now you have these finance structures on the land that you own, but you could literally lose your land because you can't pay the loan. Am I making sense? For the structure? So they're gonna
Right.
have in there, this my structure and the land on it. And if you don't pay, so you can go and buy the land, get your little government loan, build a house, or build a whole neighborhood, all this stuff. But if you don't do, make sure you pay that payment, they're coming to get it. Even the taxes on the land. So everything is about us making sure that we manage things really well and have a plan. We can't just do things randomly that we think, oh, let's just do this and then we'll do that. Oh, we're going to do that. And oh, I'll do that later. But we actually have to sacrifice. That's why we are over consumerized. They want to sell something, they put us in the commercial. You want, a casino to work, you put black people in the commercial. You'll see it all the time, but they but you'll also see when it's something that we truly need. Unfortunately, we're not put in the commercial. We won't even see it on the things that focus on us. So we have to focus on what do I need to do to make sure that I maximize my life here and make sure that I don't overwhelm my future with unnecessary debts and purchases, so that I'm helping everybody in the world that's selling something, and I'm not helping my ability to take care of myself down the road. We got to build and purchase assets that will create income for you down the road. So if you put 30 years into building a business, then you've actually built an asset for that 30 years. But if you put 30 years into working somewhere and you only put 5% of your pay away, it's not going to work. You have to take it seriously. You work somewhere, they pay you a salary, we need to be putting away 20% of that, because that's not your business. That's someone else's business. So we have to really think about that. How do I build assets for my life? How do I, make sure that I'm not wasting the overwhelming majority of my money on just stuff? It would be nice if we just figured out a way that, can you imagine if you did not have a car payment for a year, how much more money you could save? Maintenance, insurance, everything. That as soon as COVID hit and you found out that you were going to have to work from home, say that you just all of a sudden, you said, sell the car, no more payment. But instead, a lot of people went out and bought cars. The car industry sales went up and less people were driving. Isn't that something? Woo! So let's continue to think on that. What do you want to attach to your ballot, to your vote? What do you want? Some things that I only I put in the invitation. Some things that come quickly to mind. And also I didn't mention that the tax code. I believe that if we could have a higher standard deduction for lower income workers, so that because now they have the same standard deduction for everyone, but there are people who are benefiting a whole lot from the tax code, the wealthier that they are. And so how about let's make sure that the people who are living, especially at poverty level, have a higher standard deduction, because the standard deduction is $12,000, but the poverty level, especially for like a family of four, is at about $30,000. What if you had a standard deduction of $30,000? Anything that's poverty level, if their family, they'd say, well, if it's just one person, then their standard deduction would be this. But a family of four, their standard deduction would be this. That's an idea, but a higher standard deduction for lower incomes and then or lower household incomes. Protection for Social Security. The public colleges and technical training having minimum to no tuition, having affordable health care, and of course, covering the pre-existing. And we need to, get a really good understanding about the whole pre-existing. Um, that's a challenge of you need to make sure that if you switch from one coverage to another, that you have one coverage go to another coverage. Even right now, if you don't go from one policy to another policy, you're going to run into some problems. So cover it. And that's why with Medicare, you have to go in and apply immediately upon turning 65, because they want to cover your pre-existing and they want to know what's been going on. And then affordable housing, very important. Government sponsored small business loans for startup businesses with reasonable amounts, not like $1,000, but it would be a reasonable amount given the business that they need. So if they were wanted to start they needed to buy a truck, and it's going to cost $100,000 for the truck, then it would be $100,000. If it's another business that doesn't have a lot of inventory, doesn't have a lot of expenses, then it would be a smaller amount. But to have a government supported small business loans, why can't a person go and get a car and they can get a government housing loan, but they can't get a business loan? And they could say, you got to pay it back within 5 years. That's cool, but give us an opportunity to start more businesses. And of course, the minimum wage needs to be changed to a livable wage.
And something else about those federally backed small business loans, making sure that the small print doesn't stipulate certain restrictions for that business too.
That's right. And but it always will. And I always say, I thank God that I started my business with no loans. I was using my little credit card, but definitely the more you can avoid debt, the better. But there are businesses like somebody wants to do a dump truck, or they want to, build houses or something. There are businesses that actually do need capital more than other businesses. But what I do advocate is that given we have limited capital and it doesn't look like they're going to have any support for us right now, focus on technology. That's why I think it's very important for us to have the coders, but to also have the engineers and have a good understanding of artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, all of these things that we need to be moving towards. And that's how you can find, like Alibaba, a poor man who can create a business like that, and that's because of technology. So and even myself not having, any funds, but being able to start a business is because my business, and it's really is technology based. I didn't have to buy inventory, just my technology base. So that helps, and the service and the skill. But I guess my investment would be in my education and my licenses and things like that. Everything has everything. And then learning to maximize that, maximizing our investments that we've made in ourselves and continuing to increase our skill and our value. I'm not going to rest on that. I think it's very important that I become more and more enlightened. There's just so much more out there to get. And I love it when you all bring so much. I just thank God for the gift of humility, of knowing there's no way I know everything. And also, I just thank God for making sure that I always present, from my heart. And I ask God um, that you all know that whatever I share is because I want the best for you, and I want to give you the best that I can. I do.
We know you love us, Sis G.
Thank you so much. So much. Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. The indeed, God loves you, and I love you all so much. So let's stay strong, and I will be seeing you all later Wednesday. Wednesday night. Don't forget our AfroEconomics Live. Continue to pray, continue to keep God first, continue to stay positive. No, know that you're all that. God didn't make no mistakes. You all that. And a bag of chips. And some
Thank
french
you
fries.
so
Just
much.
don't
You are so
look,
encouraging.
just don't eat them. Just a bag of chips to sit over there. Bonita, don't eat him.
Have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Have a good one, sis.
Thank you so much. You too. So good. Thank you. Thank you.